Was in the 90s, where people were tough on crime. We had Mayor Rudy Giuliani in charge of New York City in the 90s. I was a cop in 1991. I became a detective shortly thereafter. And I spent a great decade of my career as a detective in the fugitive apprehension team and fugitive enforcement. But while I was on patrol, I saw a lot of sexual assault cases, a lot of rape cases that would get prosecuted and then, due to lack of evidence or at trial, gets pled down to lesser charges. So yes, I've seen this happen, but not on a grand scale like this, because back in the 90s, there was not the internet the way it is now. There was no YouTube lives. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. There was no Twitter. So now that this is amplified and everybody hears about it, it's more out there. Whereas back in the 90s, when Tim and I were cops, and Tim was probably a cop in the 80s as well, there was none of this. There was no news reporters with microphones. Maybe on the scenes of some of our murder cases, you would have a news reporter out there. I remember, but it was not transmitted onto all the socials. They didn't exist. So now, because we have these socials, it's amplified. Tim?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the laws have changed as well since the 1990s, 1980s. A lot of the laws have been tweaked a little bit in order to charge people properly. I have seen cases where somebody wasn't charged, or they were charged, and then when it went to court, it was what they call deferred prosecution, which just means that they're almost temporarily dropping the charges, waiting for more evidence so that they can bring the charges again.
Right.
This way it doesn't go to trial and they lose and then they can't retry them. Right. So I have seen that.
And the digital evidence was not as strong as what it is today. Right. We didn't have those smartphones. We had those silly little flip phones. We had the Nextel Direct Connects. So we're hearing more about them. We're hearing the details. There was no FOIA requests back then. There was no people rebroadcasting and transmitting audio interviews. We would just have audio. It would be a cassette tape recorder, audio, and they would record the interview and interrogation with no video.
So Ron, check this out, right? Let's go back old school. When you had somebody, right, that was with somebody else who committed a crime, what did you charge them?